Hey YouTube comic community, this is Jimmy the Geek Aficionado, and this is a brand new series that I've started called Will Work for Comics. And the point of the presentation of this series is to talk about things that I do that enable me to get great books at great prices, to build my collection, and to increase it without actually spending money that I earn from my job or that is brought in for my family. It's about making the hobby pay for itself. And there's been a number of people that have talked about this that I can recall. There's Reggie Collects has talked about it. DS Comics is currently doing a series on the $100 Grail. And this is my contribution to that, to kind of give a different perspective about things that you can do in order to earn capital for your comic collection. Now, a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, are buying new release comics on a regular basis, and that's where the bulk of their the bulk of their funds goes. I don't buy a lot of new comics. I keep that very shallow, and I keep it with a worked out with my LCS for some things that I do with him as well. But we'll talk about that later. The first segment that I want to talk about is buying collections. And what I mean by that, well, buying collections, it's more seeking out personal sellers, right? And this isn't anything new. I mean, you know, you're an owner, you're a comic book owner. You have your own collection, and then sometimes there's books that you want to get rid of. You want to move those books out, and you want to sell them for something else, and that's really good. Other times there's people who are just found a comic collection in their closet and they want to unload it, and there are a number of great deals that can be had with books like that. Being able to get books that are unique, and finding those hidden gems. And a lot of that to me is the fun of what I do. I bought a collection from somebody off of OfferUp one time recently. And I want to highlight some of the great books that were actually in there that increased the overall value of what I got, and still enabled me to be able to take the rest of those books and then either sell them at shows, or I'm offering some through some of the recent mystery boxes, because those books were of an age that I found that had more value. But the books themselves didn't have that value to that owner anymore. So here's some of the books that I picked up as part of that collection. This is Spectacular Spider-Man number 27. This is the first Frank Miller work on Daredevil for Marvel. Obviously huge with the Daredevil run that he was on. There was a lot that was brought to that. And this is his first Daredevil work. So this book, I believe, we got this marked. This is a near mint book. So this book is, in itself, this one alone is well over $100. And then we have issue 28, which is the second part of that, the second Frank Miller piece. And I believe it might be the first appearance of Carrion. And this book, still similar grade, very high grade, and obviously doesn't fetch as much as higher price as the other one, but still very key in that respect. And then continuing on that vein, this is issue number 158. This is the first Frank Miller Daredevil. This is a Miller cover, and this is also the death of oh my gosh, now I can't remember his name, but it'll be on the bottom. Darkstalker, I think, something like that. And one of the most notable pieces of Frank Miller's run on Daredevil is the creation of the character Elektra, as he was both the writer and the artist on the book as he progressed through the series. And this is the first appearance of Elektra, as I mentioned. And again, both these very high grade, very high quality, and part of that small collection that I bought off of a gentleman. It was, I want to say it was probably somewhere around 400 books, and these, like I said, these are the cherries of it. There's also a selection of X-Men in there from the John Byrne, Chris Claremont run that were really nice. But I believe some of those have been added to the collection, some sold off. This is another book that I've been looking for a bit, and finally got a really beautiful copy of. This is John Carter, Warlord of Mars, issue number 11, featuring the origin of Dejah Thoris, and a great Dejah Thoris cover. It needs a little bit of a clean and a press, but other than that, just in fantastic condition. And then another book I've been trying to run down in a nice grade. This is Firestorm issue number 3 of 4. This is the original 4-issue miniseries following his debut. And this is the first appearance of Killer Frost. So for those of you who are familiar with the Flash TV show, Killer Frost debuted in that. Now, my favorite part of this whole collection was this one book, and I didn't even really realize it until I was cataloging it into my software. Now, this is Marvel Team Up number 66. This is the second appearance of Captain Britain in U.S. Comics, and the first appearance of Arcade, who's a huge X-Men villain. But what the best part about this book, aside from the fact that it's in great shape, is the fact that this is a Mark Jewelers variant. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Mark Jewelers books, I'll explain what it is. When comic books were being sold on bases, armed forces bases around the world, well, at least around the U.S., there's a company named Mark Jewelers, and they provided these inserts to show off jewelry, especially ones that can be provided to loved ones while you're away, that the soldiers could purchase and have shipped. So these are men's rings and handcrafted emblems and things of that nature. But these books were only available on the bases. So these weren't as part of regular distribution to everybody. So that makes them considerably more rare. And then you'd only come across them just every now and again. I've rarely seen big veins of these books that people have hit and have come across, a lot or a large amount. But for me, that's a huge win, obviously, because it's a key book, it's in really nice condition, and it is also a Mark Jewelers variant. Now, as I was saying about finding private sellers, sometimes people will commission books, or I should say not commission, but consign books in comic stores and other areas, antique malls, as I've shown before. But sometimes you come across just a regular seller, and you can find some really, really nice stuff, especially older comic book owners, right? Men and women in their 60s, 70s, 80s, things like that, right? Where they've been collecting since the stuff was relatively on the newsstand or easy to get at that time. One such collector I came across and I was able to get some books from that were of interest to me. This one here is Mr. Miracle #1. It's in fantastic shape. It's probably a near mint minus, or at least between an 8.5 and a 9.2. I would assume, as well as issue number 2, which is the first appearance of Granny Goodness and the Female Furies. Later, a couple issues later, issue number 4 is when we finally get to meet Big Barda. But I know that there was a lot of talk about Granny Goodness and the Female Furies showing up potentially in a DC movie or show at some point. I know there's talk about a Mr. Miracle show as well. But these are Jack Kirby. This is just significant Bronze Age goodness that I just absolutely love and have been wanting to get. So along with these, and some this could be a grail, but for me, just really solid key issues that I was looking for and that I really enjoy. But I was able to actually secure a grail. This is an upgrade for me. I had a previous issue that I got with a collection, and it was just in just horrible shape. But this one is much nicer, much nicer. Daredevil #1, first yellow suit, first Foggy Nelson, first Karen Page, first Matt Murdock as Daredevil. And a shout out to Spider-Man, apparently, on the cover there, even though he's not actually in the book anywhere. But beautiful copy, beautiful presenting copy for a Silver Age book. Not high grade, but definitely a solid mid-grade copy. I'm real happy to get, and just kind of rounds out my Daredevil collection pretty nicely. Thank you for watching this episode of Will Work for Comics, and we'll catch you with the next one and talk more about ways that you can fill out your comic collection without spending a lot of money. Thanks. Bye.